Hey there. It's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the comment, thanks. As soon as we reached town, I phoned for a taxi and we went directly to the community theater. Marge and Barbara were, as always, playing cards in the makeup room when we got there. I hadn't seen them in 4 months, so we spent several minutes hugging when I arrived. Barbara and Marge were like aunts to me. I told Des that he could go for a walk if he wanted to, or was welcome to stay. He opted to go for a walk as I sat down to have a cup of tea. You look good, kiddo, Barbara said. Where's the ring? That was Barbara, as direct as ever. I'm not engaged. It was all a story created by the tabloids. But we saw the pictures. I was trying on a friend's ring and it got stuck. I know that you know how that can happen, making reference to the breast forms that had started me down this path. I hurt my finger trying to get the ring off and it swelled up, so I had to wait for the swelling to go down. It took 11 days to get the ring off. We tried to explain to the press, but you know how the tabloids are.
Aww.
We were hoping that it was real, and that dreamboat Oliver was your fiancé, Marge said. Just between us, it was his ring. His ring. Barbara said excitedly. Okay, tell us the whole story. I spent the next 10 minutes relating the events as they occurred. So he really does want to marry you? Marge asked. I would say so. He keeps asking every time we're alone together. That's nice. But you don't love him? Marge, I can't get married. Why not?
Oh.
Right. I told him that I'm not ready for marriage and won't be for years, but he says that he'll wait. I don't want to hurt him because I care for him. He's one of my best friends. The best way to ruin a good friendship is to get married, Barbara tossed in. Is not, Marge said. The best marriages are the ones where the two people are good friends before the marriage. The ones built on lust fall apart quickly. If you're good friends, then the marriage can be wonderful and last a lifetime. This has nothing to do with friendship, it's about sex. I don't have any. Isn't it about time that you took care of that, Barbara said. You can't go through life as a Barbie doll. I can't decide what I should do. Do what your heart tells you, Marge said. I don't know what it's saying. Want some help? Barbara asked. I'd love some. Okay. Tell us what you like about being a woman. Well, I like the closeness that I enjoy with my sister and my mom and my aunt. And with both of you, of course. I like being an actress and the range of emotions I can show. I like being able to dress up in beautiful gowns or dress down in jeans. I like being able to hug and kiss small children without people wondering if I'm a pedophile. I guess that those are the main things. And if you were to become a man, what would you like about it? I would like not having to shave my legs or armpits. Except then I'd have to shave my face every day, so scratch that. I'd like being able to eat more food, but even an actor has to carefully watch his weight, so scratch that. I'd like the freedom that I'd have, but I guess that as a famous person I'd still need a bodyguard, so scratch that. I can't think of anything that I can't do as a woman. Now, which would you rather be? I sighed. I guess that I'd be happier as a woman. But that doesn't address my worst fear. What would happen if I completed the transition and found that I didn't enjoy sex with men? Then have sex with women. Become a lesbian? If that's what you want, why not? You wouldn't have any trouble finding partners. Not in La La Land. I giggled out of nervousness. Look what happened to Enhechi and Ellen DeGeneres after they announced that they were gay. Their careers plummeted. Who's to say that that wouldn't have happened anyway? Barbara said. Maybe it had nothing to do with their lifestyle. Maybe it was their shove-it-in-your-face attitudes. Perhaps if they were a little more discreet, no one would ever have given it a second thought. I nodded. Maybe. Listen, kiddo, it sounds to me like you've made up your mind already. All you need is the push to go have the final step done. And then start wearing that engagement ring. I thought for a few seconds. Thank you both. You've helped me see things more clearly. You always have such good advice. I stood up and hugged Barbara and then Marge. Come on, kiddo. Let's go fit your dress for the ceremony. This year you're going to go home with the award. The other pictures were all stinkers compared to the great job that you did. We walked to the wardrobe room and I undressed as Barbara brought out the gown. I caught my breath as I saw it. It was a strapless bustier gown made from raspberry-colored iridescent satin. The floor-length dress had rhinestone piping with a flared asymmetrical top skirt and ruffled underskirt. Oh, Barbara, it's beautiful. I don't know how you manage to outdo yourself with each new creation. You're an absolute genius. You won't get an argument from me. Raise your arms. I put my arms up and Barbara lowered the dress over me. Then she began pulling and tugging and she began the fitting. Good thing that your mother told me how tight that Christmas costume was on you. I allowed a little more room around your middle. I know. I'm getting too fat. You're not fat. Your waistline has just increased a couple of inches. It's still only 23 inches. It's been growing ever since I stopped wearing the corset. I guess that things are shifting back where they came from. Maybe it'll shrink again once I start the picture in October. I'm sure that I'll be wearing a corset most of the week. You're getting older, hon. You can't expect to stay a 21 waist forever. That's for teenagers and you ain't one any longer. I sighed. I know. I've got 5 more years and I'm over the hill as far as good parts are concerned. Barbara started laughing so hard that she had to stop and go sit down for a minute. You're priceless. You think that you're going to be washed up in 5 years? Maybe not washed up, but I won't have the pick of scripts like I do now. Stop it. You're getting better with every part. You're a natural, but you're still learning the business and refining your techniques. I can see a difference in each new movie. Very subtle differences to be sure, but they're there nevertheless. In 5 years you'll be better than you are today, not worse. But the parts are written for attractive 18-year-olds. Not fat, over 26ers. Barbara laughed again. You're too much. I just want you to promise me that you won't get into that bulimia nonsense where you eat too much and then force yourself to vomit to purge the food. I promise, I hate vomiting. I just eat moderate amounts, although I admit that there are times when I'd love to pig out, especially on holidays when we have all my favorite foods. Barbara had resumed work on the gown again, marking and pinning as she worked. Okay, let me sew up the alterations. There's a dressing gown hanging on the rack over there. Barbara helped me remove the dress and I put on the robe. Since she would have to concentrate on her sewing, I went back to sit and talk with Marge. After about an hour, Barbara came in and sat down. We talked while she had a cup of tea and then we returned to the wardrobe room for another fitting. It seemed perfect to me, but Barbara wasn't satisfied, so she did some more marking and pinning and then sewing. 2 more fittings finished the work on the gown. Barbara had made a pair of opera-length gloves using the same fabric as the dress and had selected some gold jewelry to go with the gown. A large collection of beautiful, imitation jewelry had been donated to the theater some years before. The gold settings were real and beautiful, but the stones were all fake. Still, because of the high quality of the settings, it took an expert with a jeweler's loupe to identify the pieces as imitation. Barbara gave me a beautiful necklace that looked like it came from some European country's crown jewels, matching earrings, and a 2-inch wide bracelet. It looked like I was wearing $1 million worth of gems when in fact the jewelry represented the tiniest of fractions of that amount. For shoes, Barbara had found a pair with 3-inch heels that matched the color of the dress almost perfectly. They raised me to the perfect height for the length of the dress. When I was completely dressed, Barbara called to Marge. Marge came in and her mouth dropped. "Crystal, you're a vision. You really look like a princess in that gown. The other attendees are going to be green with envy." I giggled. Too bad that Barbara can't get an Academy Award for the gowns that she creates. I keep telling her that she should move to California. With all the publicity that you've been giving her over the past few years, she'll have no trouble finding customers for her creations. Bah, Barbara said. I couldn't live out there. Most of the people are as plastic as their money. I'm ecstatic that Crystal has remained as real as she was. I don't have much contact with them except on the set. I don't go to the parties or functions unless I have to. That's the difference, Barbara said. Your family keeps you real by not treating you like a celebrity. You're just a 20-year-old girl to them. I don't think that most of the people are really phony. That's just a mask that they put on whenever they're with the media, or people that they don't know. Behind closed doors they're as real as anyone else. It's just that after a while you learn that the mask is needed to protect yourself. Reporters are quick to jump on any misspoken word or action. It's still not for me. I'm happy working here, and the extra money that you give me for making your gowns enables Marge and I to have a nice night out every week. Why should I get involved in the rat race? Okay, Barb, but if you ever change your mind, I'll set you up in business out in California. Thanks, kiddo. What time is your flight? There's a flight to Chicago in about 2 hours, and then the last flight for the day is in about 5 hours. Then let's start getting you together so that you can catch the next flight. I'm sure that you're anxious to get going so that you don't wind up getting in at midnight. With Barbara's help I removed the gown and put my skirt and blouse back on. Barbara put the gown into the travel bag that I had brought along to protect it, and the other things went into my carry-on case. We had time to sit and talk for another 10 minutes as we waited for the taxi to arrive. Des had been sitting in the audience seating while I was getting fitted, and then had gone to watch for the cab when I told him that I had called for it. When he came to get me I said my goodbyes to Barbara and Marge and we left for the airport. The cab driver kept up a running dialogue of how great my pictures were all the way to drop-off curb. I gave him my autograph and promised to send him a picture after he gave me his address. We picked up our tickets at the check-in counter and went to the security gate. We placed all our bags on the conveyor and then walked through the metal detector. Des had to remove his shoes because they had metal toe protectors in each. I walked over to the conveyor to wait for my carry-on as he put his shoes back on. An inspector was going through my bag and signaled to a state police officer to come over. When the officer reached him, the inspector handed him the jewelry case containing the necklace, earrings, and bracelet. The officer looked at it suspiciously and said, "Is this your jewelry, miss?" "No, it's not. It's on loan. I'm going to be wearing it at the Academy Awards ceremony on Sunday." The officer scowled and then stiffened. He reached up and raised his mirrored sunglasses and looked at me as I raised my sunglasses. "Oh my God. I'm sorry, Miss Ramsey. I didn't recognize you." He closed the case quickly and handed it back to the inspector, who put it back into my bag and zipped it closed. The state police officer said, "You know, you shouldn't be traveling with that kind of jewelry on your person. It's all right, officer, this rather large gentleman behind me is my bodyguard. He'll see that nothing happens. The officer looked up at Des, then back to me. Yes, ma'am. He looks very competent. Good luck at the awards ceremony. We'll be rooting for you. I loved the movie, by the way. I said, thank you, officer, as I put the strap of the carry-on on my shoulder. Des picked up the travel bag containing the gown. Now that I had been publicly identified, a lot of people were gawking at me. I ignored them and continued on. There wasn't an Admiral's Club at this small airport, so we had to wait in the regular seating area, but Des would see that I wasn't molested. He didn't even sit down, preferring to stand next to me with a piercing stare. I was able to relax and enjoy the magazine that I had picked up as people stared at me from their seats. A couple of young girls came over for autographs, but I think that Des intimidated others who would have come over. We arrived at LAX just after 8 p.m. local time and found Carol there, waiting to meet us, with the minivan. We could have taken a commuter flight up to the Santa Barbara airport, but with the waiting time involved it was actually quicker terminating our flight here. I had several days before the Academy ceremony, so I helped Carol with her movie project. The film had been developed and edited by now, and while I was away, she and her friends had turned part of the basement into a soundproofed studio. The basement had been completely cleaned and painted when the house was renovated, so they only had to construct some walls and mount the soundproofing material. Mom had used the household account for the materials, and Carol's friends had worked for food and beverages. Sharon had come up and done her voice-over work a week earlier, and now it was my turn. The movie was projected onto a screen in the studio and I listened to Sharon's voice-over work on headphones, while filling in my portion. It only took several hours on Thursday to record my voice for the scenes with the twins. Carol would now take the recorded tapes down to the school and dub them into the movie. On Friday I went to visit Dr. Roman. I was almost completely out of the medicine that he prescribed for me and I needed them to suppress all sexual arousal. I was shown right into an examination room when I arrived, and told to disrobe. I removed my clothes, putting on the hospital gown left for me, and waited for Dr. Roman to come in. I only had to wait a few minutes. Good morning, Crystal, Dr. Roman said as he entered. Good morning, Dr. Roman. So, have you made a decision about your future? Yes, I said, with as much conviction as I could muster. I've decided to proceed with the transition. But I'm almost out of the medicine you prescribed, so I need a refill to carry me through until I can complete the surgery. Wonderful, when would you like to schedule the SRS? Dr. Roman opened a folder that he had carried in and began to write. I assumed that it was my folder. How about next March? Dr. Roman stopped writing and looked at me. Next March? A year from now? Is this another delaying tactic? No, I said with conviction. I'm just too busy right now. I'm in the middle of making an action-adventure movie in the Caribbean. As soon as it's done, I have to head to Europe to start an action comedy, and as soon as that's done I have another movie starting in Virginia. Next March is the soonest that I can schedule a recuperation period. I see, Dr. Roman said thoughtfully. And you've definitely decided to proceed. No more stalling after this? Definitely no more stalling. Very well. I'll give you a prescription that will get you through next March, but this is positively the last one. Thank you, Dr. Roman. Dr. Roman gave me a complete physical and declared me to be in excellent health. Before we said goodbye, he wrote the prescription. On the way home, Des stopped so that I could have the prescription filled. He had waited in the car while I went into the doctor's office and now I waited in the car while he went into the pharmacy. The prescription was made out to C. Ramsey so that the pharmacist wouldn't make a connection to me. Saturday was a day to relax, and I started it with an early morning swim and then lazed about for the rest of the day, spending part of the time rereading over the revised script for the balance of the movie and practicing my lines. On Sunday morning I went down to visit the same hairdresser, Vivian, who had done my hair before the last awards ceremonies. I had contacted her as soon as I had been nominated so that I could make the special Sunday appointment. She was too far away for me to go to regularly since I moved, but she understood and said that she was happy just to do my hair once each year. I was going to wear my hair up this year, for a very formal look. Des waited in the chair because he didn't like the chemical smells in the salon. Vivian's assistant would do my nails as Vivian did my hair. When my hair and nails were done, we drove over to the condo so that I could dress. Alan would pick us up there with the limo. I was almost ready when Alan arrived. I heard Des let him in, and then I heard normal conversation. I hurried to finish my makeup and join the boys in the living room. We talked for a few minutes, and then left for the ceremonies. With most ceremonial gatherings, once you've been to one, most of the excitement is gone. That wasn't true with the Academy Awards. I felt almost as nervous this time as I had the first time. The main difference was that I was now more comfortable in the presence of my peers. I was older and I knew that I was really one of them now, not an outsider looking to join some elite club. Exiting the limo was the same as always. Bright flashes from photographers started bathing us as soon as the door was open. I had purposely removed my left glove so that there would be no question as to whether or not I was wearing a ring. As Alan and I walked up the red carpet, we were stopped several times by reporters. I smiled as I answered their questions, including the one about my reported engagement. I explained over and over that I was only trying on a friend's ring and it got stuck. Only one reporter asked me whose ring it was, and I responded that I didn't care to involve anyone else in the ridiculous story. Once inside I greeted, and was greeted by, other actors on a first-name basis, even though we weren't really friends. It was simply done that way by virtue of our common occupation and celebrity. When we were escorted to our seats, I found Herb Dressen, the producer, and his wife already seated in the row. I introduced Alan and we talked about the picture, its box office numbers, the reviews by critics, and the picture's chance for an Oscar. We were joined by Stephen Charles, the director, and his girlfriend, and the conversation started over again. The Academy ceremony is quite long and the awards that are considered the most important are left to last. Of the 3 nominations, Princess to the Mob won Film Editing, but lost to Directing, and the third nomination, Best Actress, had yet to be announced. When they reached the Best Actress category, they showed clips of each movie and then the camera zoomed in on each of the actresses' faces as the winner was announced. I held my breath as they read, and the winner is, and then read someone else's name. I smiled widely and applauded as the winner hurried to the stage. It was her moment now and I was happy for her, but a little disappointed that I had lost again. It was nice that the picture had won one award, and nice that I now had 3 nominations, even if I hadn't actually won the award. I wondered what the papers would say tomorrow about my consistently being passed over. I also wondered if my isolationism was in any way responsible for the way that the Academy voted. After the ceremony, we went on to one of the parties, but I wasn't into it, so I thanked Alan for escorting me and left. We sent the limo back to wait for Alan after we reached the condo, and Des drove us back to the estate. I didn't even take time to change. It was still early when I got home, so everyone was up. They commiserated with me and told me how lovely I looked on television. I thanked them and went up to change. After removing the gown, I decided to take a long hot bath. It relaxed me and I felt better afterwards. Instead of going back downstairs, I just climbed into bed and went to sleep. I awoke early and swam some laps before breakfast. Mom was in the family dining room when I made my way there after my swim. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said as I came in. "Morning, Mom. Feeling better?" "Yes, I guess so." "Are you too disappointed over not winning?" "I'm a little disappointed. The first year I didn't expect to win at all, so it wasn't much of a loss. The second time, I felt that I had a chance, so I was a little disappointed. This time I knew that I had a good chance. I'm established and the pictures that I've been in do very well with the movie-going public. But 3 nominations in a row and I've come up empty. What happened to, I'm just happy to be nominated. I was, but I guess that I thought I'd eventually win. You will, honey. Maybe next year. Maybe. I've reached a decision though. I'm not going to attend the ceremony if I'm involved in a picture. I'm not going to fly all the way back here from across the country, or across the ocean, just to see someone else collect the award. If I'm not working and I'm here at the estate, maybe I'll go. Otherwise, they can get by without me. I won't be missed. What if you win? They can mail me the statue. That doesn't sound like you. I was quiet for a minute. I guess that I'm just frustrated. I've been nominated 3 years in a row and haven't won. If I get nominated again next year, I'd be embarrassed to show up. What if I didn't win again? I'm becoming the Susan Lucci of movies. You mean the soap opera star? Yes, the actress who plays Erica Kane on All My Children. She was nominated for an Emmy 18 times and didn't win. Finally, in 1999, on her 19th nomination, she received her first award. You know, Bette Davis was nominated for Best Actress in 1939, 40, 41, 42, and again in 1944 without winning one of them. In fact, she had 10 nominations but only won twice. I heard that last night. I know. And Marlon Brando was nominated for Best Actor in 1951, 52, 53, and 54, but didn't win until 1954. He won twice with 8 nominations. And Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole were each nominated 7 times but never won at all. I know all the trivia, Mom. So maybe you just have to be patient. Your day will come. I'll be patient. I'm just not going to fly all over the world trying to get here for the ceremony. I've done it 3 times now and that's enough. I might be like Richard Burton or Peter O'Toole and never win. Mom dismissed my comment with "Okay, dear," then asked, "What time do you have to leave today?" We should leave for the airport by 10 this morning. Our bags were sent on ahead with the crew, so we're traveling light. You'll see that the jewelry is FedExed back to the theater? Of course. I'll call Barbara and tell her when to expect it. I want to talk to her anyway. I want to tell her what a wonderful job she did on this year's gown. It was the most beautiful gown at the ceremony. The reporters all commented on how beautiful you looked. She really outdid herself. The gown is a dream. I told her that any time she wants to move to California, I'll set her up in business, but I don't think that she'll ever leave the theater. I think that you're right, but she seems a little depressed about the theater's popularity these days. They just need to get back to mainstream plays. That's what people there will come to see. Somebody has to talk with Neil. How about you? I don't think that he'd listen to me. He was a member of the theater company long before I joined. It would have to come from someone like Mr. Tucker. Maybe you could speak to him and ask him to talk with Neil? Okay, I'll see what I can do. I'll tell Barbara that you're working on it. What's for breakfast? Eggs, bacon, sausage, French toast, or cereal? What would you like? I think French toast and breakfast sausages. Okay, I'll tell Mrs. McGuire. I was just going for tea anyway. After breakfast I showered and dressed, and then Mom and Aunt Jess drove us down to the airport in the minivan. We didn't have any problem at the security gate this time, and went directly to the Admiral's Club to wait for our plane. After spending most of the day either in the air or waiting for our connection in Miami, we finally arrived in St. Croix. A limo picked us up at the airport and brought us to the house in Frederiksted that had been rented for me. Our suitcases were waiting for us and I unpacked before climbing into bed. The movie's water shots were to be taken off the west end of the island, at a site prepared by the advance people, but during the first couple of weeks we concentrated on shooting the shots aboard the boat. When I wasn't needed in scenes, I spent time with the professional divers hired for the movie, improving my limited scuba skills. I had always loved swimming and I took to the underwater activity like a, dare I say it, duck to water. Underwater swimming in the ocean wasn't anything like my introduction to scuba in the pool. It was like opening up a new world, and I had to constantly remind myself not to get carried away, and to pay attention to things like my depth and the amount of air remaining. 2 weeks after we started shooting, Sharon showed up. She was stunting for me on the picture and I had invited her to stay in the house with Des, Mrs. McGuire, and me. The house only had 3 bedrooms, so Sharon would share the king-sized bed in my room. It was the first time that I had slept in the same bed with a woman who wasn't a blood relative, or for that matter, any person who wasn't a blood relative. It was great having Sharon for company during the work week, and on Sundays we toured the island looking for interesting places or shops. The weeks on the beautiful island flew by and before I knew it, it was time to leave for home. Whether it was the great cast and crew that we had, the location, the underwater swimming, or the fact that Sharon was there with me, I enjoyed making the picture more than any other that I had done. Probably, it was a combination of the 4. We had a nice party on the evening of our last day, and with the movie wrapped up, we could relax and begin to resume our normal lives. Sharon had actually finished a week earlier, but she stayed to be with me, and so that we could fly home together. Arriving back in California on Thursday, we dropped Sharon off at home first, taking an hour to see the twins and have a cup of tea. Mom had come down with the estate's minivan, and Des had struggled to pack it. A lot of the luggage went up onto the roof rack so that we had enough room left inside for 5 adults. Until we reached Sharon's house, we were packed in like sardines. Des stayed with the van while Mom, Mrs. McGuire, and me visited with Sharon. Then it was time to head up to the estate and we said
bye
to Sharon, the twins, and Mrs. Bradley, the nanny. Mrs. Bradley had moved into the house now and was the full-time nanny for the girls. It gave Sharon the flexibility to take whatever stunt work came her way. Roy was rarely at home anymore. He still came home for the more important holidays though. It was great to be home. The picture had wrapped up just in time for me to attend Carol's graduation. I had thought that I might have to take time off and return to complete the movie, but the weather had behaved and we had finished the shooting ahead of schedule. While I had been on St. Croix, Mom had traveled to Aunt Jessica's house and helped her pack her things. Aunt Jess had finished up with her employer and once her things were packed and aboard the moving van, she and Mom came back to the estate. Her house was placed with a realtor and she could handle the sale from California. Dad arrived about 8:30 on Friday night and George had driven down to pick him up at the airport. Dad had flown in for just the weekend to attend Carol's graduation. On Friday night we got a personal screening of Carol's senior project. Carol had set up the projector and a large screen in the ballroom for the presentation. We made popcorn and then sat down to watch the movie. The twins were adorable in their little spy outfits and, with the voices dubbed over, the movie was hilarious. We watched the short 3 times, enjoying it as much the third time as the first. Carol had received an A+ on the project. She had had a crew to help with the shooting, but she had written the script, produced, directed, and edited the movie herself. She wasn't ready to direct a big-budget movie yet, but it looked like the potential was there, if she wanted to go in that direction. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks.